Okay, I'm going to jump in and kind of start talking, and I really appreciate the fact that Melody paired me up with Natalie. See, this is like yin and yang. A lot of people tell me I'm not totally useless. I can be used as a bad example, so I'm the bad example, and Natalie is the good example. And so, what we're going to talk a little bit about is some problem solving. And Melody will find here in a moment that she uses that term weeding and pruning, but Dr. Bumgarner and I, as we were doing our discussion, that almost sounds like if you've got that master gardener that you don't like, then you just prune them out. You get rid of them. And so that's not what we're going to be talking about here. As we've already discussed a number of characteristics in terms of sowing the seeds of success and growing really good leadership in terms of our organization. We've already talked about some great topics there and identifying those skills of all leaders. But inevitably, in every organization, I don't care how good or how strong, inevitably, some issues or problems potentially can move into our organization. And so, what we want to discuss is some of those things, maybe how to head those problems off and or dealing with those issues as they arrive. So the next slide, as we come into this, you know, again, we changed Melody's title just a little bit because rather than thinking weeding and pruning is what we consider a cultural management practice. It is problem solving on the front side. We don't want to give the idea that if you've got a problem in your organization, you just cut it out. You just pull it out and go on. That is not what we're talking about. When we discuss weeding and pruning, we're at the front end of issues that we might have. And so we feel like an ounce of prevention is definitely worth a pound or more of cure. And so being culturally strong in our organization, we're going to start on the front side of eliminating a lot of these problems that we may potentially have. So as we move into the next slide, that, I think for me, when I start working with organizations, and this could be the master gardener in particular, in our case, is, your mission coming into this thing. I know all of us want to learn about plants. We want to learn about gardening. We want to increase the breadth of our knowledge about plants. And I've always told people, if that's your mission, that's your goal, well, then go out and teach it. And I think in our organizations, when we set a standard that we put the values, the beliefs, the successes to champion others before ourselves, you will be successful. And a lot of those problems that can potentially creep into our organization can easily be headed off by put the values, the beliefs, the successes of others before your own. Now, I know this is particularly those in the work group that know me well. They're going to be shocked at this statement that I've got a pretty strong personality, that I'm a very confident person, and very thick skin. I can laugh at myself. I can laugh as other really criticize or ridicule because I'm confident in myself. However, when I work with organizations and I work with people, despite my opinions, I can have my own opinion. And I can feel comfortable in getting my own opinion out there, but whether it's accepted by the group or not accepted by the group, it doesn't bother me. I'm very confident. So we laid this groundwork at the very beginning today, talking about that self-recognition and kind of identifying your role and identifying your personalities and identifying things that you like, things that you dislike, and recognizing your strengths and weaknesses. And understand other people in your organization are going to have those same strengths and weaknesses. If you champion that other person and the other person is championing you, then basically you can come to the resolution. You can defuse any and all conflict because you're working to empower the other person, not empower yourself. Issues that I've had in organizations over the years have basically involved situations where one person, it was their way. They saw themselves as the boss. They were going to dictate to others what they were going to do and what they weren't going to do. I can speak in our organization. One probably, it's been many years ago, a situation where, you know, a strong personality in the organization, that's exactly what they did. And ultimately, as the leader, I think, you know, we promote everybody putting the thoughts and benefits and beliefs of others, building that culture. However, Natalie, as we move that next slide, inevitably there may be a case where we get to a situation where we have to do some problem solving. So first and foremost, before we get to that problem, giving everybody a chance, an opportunity, a perspective to say their opinion, to express their views, to listen openly to what people have. That free expression of everyone's views, and then not taking it personal. You know, we've all got different political views. We've got different views on religion. We've got different views on sports. That's what makes differences, is what really makes for a unique and beautiful cultures, that we have all these differing opinions and ideas. It gets pretty bland and stale when everybody thinks exactly the same way. And so allowing those free expressions of ideas. In our breakout group earlier this morning, we had one question that was brought up. What about new members in leadership roles? It's only been there a year or two. You know, without question, I love bringing new members into those roles because it brings new, fresh eyes, fresh ideas, not the same status quo. But we have to be willing to allow those people to express those views and ideas. When we don't, that's when we're going to really generally run into our conflict and dealing with those conflict situations. When we got conflict, you know, probably one of the biggest things that you're going to have to do as an organization, and a lot of times this may go back to the master gardener coordinators, and you may have to get some assistance from them, but you need to be consistent in terms of your message and what you're trying to do. I hope for my master gardeners, again, my message is always put others first. If you're putting others first and devaluing your opinion, then everything will work out. It's when you value your opinion more than the group of the whole, that's when we're going to have issues. And in a case, only one time I can think in the history of our organization, in my county, that I actually had to just tell a person that, look, you know, you may need to evaluate that whether or not this program is for you, because your views and values do not follow in line with what the group as a whole and an organization as a whole are trying to do. And what are we trying to do? Improve the lives of people, champion other people, help others learn, help others. This is not about being a ruler and dictation of the masses. So how can we eliminate some of these things? Well, first and foremost, plan. You know, a strategic plan is not something that I'm going to tell you as an organization that you need to do every year. But it is something that at some point in time you need to work into your organization to kind of get an idea of what the group is wanting to do, not you individually. Now, I think I saw earlier Seth Whitehouse is on our meeting today. Natalie, Dr. Baumgartner, and myself serve on a statewide strategic planning meeting for UT. And there's a lot of times that I feel like my own personal idea is not getting out there to the masses. You know what? It's not about just my idea. It's about the organization. And so what we're trying to do is find out what is best for our organization, what works for the masses. I may put my little blips in there, and there may be one or two people across the state that agree wholeheartedly with what I think. But again, it's not about me. University of Tennessee Extension doesn't evolve around Greg Upchurch, unfortunately, but it's about the University Extension program as a whole. Same goes for Master Gardener program. No one person is bigger than the whole. And so what you're trying to do in this leadership role is to plan as a group and basically provide that kind of that working relationship that moves you forward in a mission or a goal that everybody is planning and striving to meet that same mass goal. And hopefully for our Master Gardener program, that's improving the lives of people through horticulture.
All right. Thank you very much, Greg. And so as you can kind of see, Greg and I kind of are trading off with this. He said yin yang, which is very true, because he's the big picture guy and I'm the what are the steps that we need to get there. So that's kind of where we're trading off here. And when we start to encounter problems, as you can see, a lot of the things that we're talking about are going back to earlier modules, because if you start to think about problem solving the first time you have a personality conflict, you are, you're months or years behind on that, because it's the foundation of trust and transparency and communication that puts you in the position to be able to simply or directly solve problems. So we operate from a place of open communication. This is my alliteration statement. Communication needed in the crises are cultivated in the calm, right? So it's not when things get hard that we learn how to treat each other as humans and communicate openly and transparently. We practice that in the easier conversations, and it becomes a habit that we build on. Emphasize early detection. This is one of the hardest things, and I'll say this for me personally, is I just want to deal with it myself, right? Yeah, they kind of said that, it came off bad, I went away a little offended, but that was probably just me. I'll get over it. It probably won't be a big deal. And if you do that for multiple times, you get to the point where nobody actually knows what you think, right? And you don't have the opportunity to deal with some of those things clearly. And so all of us have to individually make that commitment to be clear in our communication, right? We don't have to make sure that everybody knows how we feel about everything, but we have to be honest enough with ourselves that if something is really an issue for us, we clearly say it to other people. And the other thing, this is what I mean by rely upon your smoke alarms. We all have different strengths. And we've got some people, many of them on this meeting today, who are pretty good at knowing what the temperature is in the room and how things went over for different people. So trust them to know if somebody needs a little bit of additional communication or, a little bit of outreach. We've got some really skilled people who know how things impact it, right? Let your blues, or however you'd like to type them, be some of your cues for how people are responding, but don't let them bear that whole responsibility. All of us have to communicate transparently. Because I think that sometimes we all tend to think about problem solving as like those personality conflicts that, we have to get in the room and, it's tense and people have to talk to each other. And sometimes those happen. But a lot of times solving problems are really things that we do in a group together, right? We figure out how we're going to spend our money, or, I'm sure that all of you guys did this a lot this spring. 3 weeks from now is your biggest, meeting or fundraiser or event of the year, and it's going to have to get canceled. And how are we going to go about these decisions, right? That happens with 5 people or 10 people or 30 people in a room. And then we really start to rely on each other's different strengths to kind of work through those processes. And being able to do that clearly means that we trust each other. It means that when somebody has something that they really feel they need to say, they get the space and the time to do it. And we start to kind of get a feel for how different people handle those situations and how we can all work together. Because, there are going to be some people who are immediately going to put the plan into motion. There are going to be some people that are going to be trying to figure it out. And there are going to be some people that are more concerned about how it's impacting, you know, emotionally the individuals in the room. And we need all of those people, right? So we've teased each other a little bit today. You've heard, you know, some of the work groups. So if I were to create an analogy about how we might problem solve together, imagine that we're like in a conference or something where we have an invited speaker and they've said some horribly inappropriate thing, like, you know, the Big Ten is a stronger football conference than, you know, the SEC. And so together we have to figure out how we're going to solve this problem. And we know each other and we work together. And we kind of, I could kind of have a sense for how different people might solve that problem, right? So, so Lee and Celeste are going to be like visiting with the people that were in that room to kind of get a sense for how they feel and make sure that not anybody's like too upset about that situation. Natalie and Anna are going to be in the hallway. They're going to be analyzing what went wrong. And it'll be next week before they figure out what it is that they want to do about it. But by golly, there'll be a plan in place and this won't ever happen again in the next 5 years. And Melody and Rachel will already be down the hall. Like they will have already come up with a plan. They will be addressing the speaker. They will be explaining what went wrong. And Greg Upchurch was having a conversation with somebody that was really interesting beside him. And he didn't even hear what the speaker said. He has no idea that there was a problem, right? But all of those practices will actually help us move that problem forward, right? Because some people dealt with it directly. Some people dealt with the human element. Some people have a plan that will prevent this problem in the future. And some people are there to be positive and say, that was not that big a deal, people. We are not going to obsess about this forever, right? And so together, when we kind of know how different people are going to react in those situations, then we can put all those skills into practice. But we do know that sometimes there are like just personal things that we're going to have to sit down, or programmatic things and talk about. And I tend to think that these kind of fall into two different categories. Some of them have to do with a lack of program understanding, right? How are you going to spend your money? How are you going to spend your time? And a lot of these go back to the mission, right? You know, we don't have to have big arguments about how much money we need or whether the biggest thing we do this year is going to be a fundraiser. We just need to go back to our mission. What is our mission? What is our plan? Are we all on the same page to reach this mission? Or do we clearly understand our roles? You know, was this really not the president's job to do all of this, right? A lot of these are not personality issues. They're just the fact that maybe we didn't clarify our roles, responsibilities, and we weren't all working towards the same mission. And so if you have these kinds of conversations in the context of the mission, in the context of where we're going together, it takes it out of the realm of you did this or you didn't do that. Another thing that, of course, we don't have enough time, you know, to visit about all these nuances, but I tend to refer them as porosity problems, right? Things that really aren't organizational issues. They're just things that seep in, right? Right now, I mean, I'll just be honest, in 2020, people kind of want to get mad at each other. And some of the things that they're getting mad at each other about really don't have anything to do with our organization. And sometimes we got to give each other some grace on those kinds of things because, you know, we're all feeling stress in different ways. Sometimes it's due to lack of personal understanding. We don't know people well enough to know how to have that conversation. They come from a different background, experience, work experience, family experience. They come from different generations and we, you know, communicate differently. We have an indirect or a more direct communication style. And so, you know, they thought that they were communicating with you really, really clearly. And you had no idea what it was that they were trying to say. And this one, I always throw it in because, you know, we know it's true, but it's also kind of funny. We communicate differently depending on which part of the country that we're in, right? And so, you know, that directness and even the terms and phrases that we use, like when I'm smiling at Jenny because I always think of Jenny when I talk about geographical stuff because she's lived and worked in Michigan and Texas and Tennessee, you know, and those are vastly different types of communication styles. So sometimes, you know, we're just gonna have to sit down and we're gonna have to have the talk, even if we, you know, we've covered the mission, we try to understand there's differences in communication style. And so these are just my personal kind of things that I always want to try to get done in that talk. Make it timely, right? Like I don't want to hear that, you know, something that I did was offensive a month and a half later, right? Because then we have time to imagine all sorts of motivations that probably were not present at all. Make it human, right? And this is the hardest thing in this year, is that we can't just like go visit somebody, right? We've had to like, you know, deal with issues over the phone or over a Zoom meeting, and it takes even more grace and understanding to try to, you know, not let the digital technology hold us back. But hopefully in the future, we'll be able to just walk up to somebody and say, hey, you know, what happened there? I'm so sorry. And that happened. Make it clear. I kind of talked about this a little bit with our direct and indirect communication styles. But some of us who tend to be a little bit more subtle need to know that, so that we don't come out of conversations feeling like we just told you what we thought and you had no idea what we thought. So this is, I always think back to college, and every time I had to have a breakup conversation with a guy, I had to do it 2 days in a row, because the first day I said what I thought, and then the second day I had to explain it so that somebody else would understand, right? And so we know how it is that other people respond to us over time, and we have to kind of adjust so that we're operating on that same communication space that they are, and make it two-way. So my last two pictures, and this actually comes, I don't know if any of you guys have read the Arbinger Institute, but it's one of my favorite problem-solving types of leadership skills. I think that sometimes, and you know, maybe it's me, right? Maybe it's kind of the personality that we bring to this. We think that solving problems are like we can find the magic formula, like there's an algorithm. You know, there's a way that if we punch in all the right things, we can get to the right conclusion. But so much of problem solving is not necessarily about saying the right thing. It's not always about, you know, using all the right phrases or doing it in the right order. It's about the attitude that we bring with it and how it is that we are interacting with that other person. And so the Arbinger Institute says it like this. No matter what we say or how we say it, if we are treating the person that we're in this conflict with as an object, then like it doesn't matter, right? We may say the perfect words, we may be complimentary, we may explain the mission, but if we treat them like they're just a gargoyle in our way, then we're never going to be able to have clear conversation, because people know. They know when we're being genuine. And if we act like we're following all the right steps and what they're hearing is, you're a problem in my way, I'm trying to, you know, pretend like I'm solving this in a genuine way, they know. But if we deal with them as a human, as a real person, then sometimes even if we say the wrong things, they understand that we're trying to communicate with them with an element of humanity. This is my niece, right? But like if you put someone in that situation that you truly care about and try to operate in a human way, then sometimes if our algorithm's wrong, we can still solve this problem, because it's about trust, and it's about communication, and it's about treating people like we really care about them. And so when we think about how we address these challenges, you know, it's kind of about holding ourselves accountable and leaning in. If I didn't mention it, you know, by the algorithm, there's no secret, right? But when we operate in teams that trust each other, then problem solving isn't always easy, but it's possible. And it's worth it, because we value where we're going. And so we're not willing to let something that comes between us derail everything that we're all working towards. And I think that, you know, mission, communication, trust, and culture all seamlessly come together in problem solving. And so, Greg, do you have anything else you want to throw in there as we close this section?
No, I would just echo everything that you said. And again, the last slide, when she said, keep it human. You know, so many of these organizational problems will evolve around the root of all evil, money, or somebody championing their own ideas. If you keep it human, and the mission is about the human growth, I think you'll find that a lot of your problems will not be problems anymore.
Well, great job, Greg and Natalie. One thing before we do bust into our group session, what Natalie has said and Greg said, and hopefully we've all been alluding to all day, is that trust issue. And with trust comes that element of vulnerability. It's kind of putting ourselves out there, and you kind of could tell by Natalie's analogy of what each one of us as a team member, how we would react. That's because we all kind of put ourselves out there with each other, and in moments like this, we can use that as a great analogy, but and also have fun with one another. And that's ultimately, what today is all about, is getting to know one another, get to know each other in those local groups a little bit better, so we can create that culture and build that foundation. So,
Melody, just a quick comment. You think about our work groups and how different the personalities are on our work groups. And the master gardeners don't realize this, but really across the board, the differences in personalities. And yet all the time that we've been working together, we've never, ever had a harsh, even remotely harsh disagreement about anything, because it's not about us. And anything that's said or done, it's not about us personally. It's about the betterment of the program and the people that we work with. And that's what we strive to do. That's beyond anything. That's our mission, is to help other people. And I think when you set that as a goal and you don't focus as much on your own feelings, but the goal of all the others, it can really solve a lot of problems.